there. Thanks for downloading the show. Welcome to Garden Fork Radio. As this is your first time here, my name is Eric. I have a DIY YouTube channel and this very eclectic podcast where I talk with my friends and interesting guests. Today, we are guest and co-host free. It's Eric doing the solo show. I've talked about this before, but I want to get better at just recording a podcast when I would like to, instead of trying to schedule guests, and then I come up with an excuse for not recording the show because, I don't have anyone to talk to. But I'm here talking to you. Are you in your car? Are you mowing your lawn? I fold laundry. When I listen to podcasts, that doesn't make sense. When I do laundry, I listen to podcasts. True crime podcasts, unfortunately. It's a secret addiction of mine. But hey, welcome. I have a couple of interesting things to talk about today, kind of inspiry stuff. I just read articles and then I feel better about the world, so I thought I'd share a couple of those with you. But first, I wanted to thank our new Patreon supporters. Garden Fork is supported through monthly contributions. People throw us a couple bucks. You can start at $3 a month, which is like a cup of coffee. A cup of coffee. Who do I sound like? I sound like my neighbors. $3 a month. We have some new patrons, so I wanted to say hello and welcome to them. Nicole H., who actually emails me a lot. Brian P., Claire W., Kevin M., and Kate D. And when you sign up on Patreon, there's a link in our show notes here for that. If you load the Patreon app into your phone or your iPad, I post some behind-the-scenes kind of stuff once or twice a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, about Eric's world. So you might get a little bit more of a view for that. I kind of always assume everyone can read my mind. And then I realized that I didn't share that thing. Like on Instagram, I don't like to post a lot of pictures of myself all the time. And so on Patreon, there's a little bit more of that, a little bit more behind the curtain, as it were. So just wanted to say thanks for my patrons. I'll be posting a new thing there soon. First thing was kind of I was like, oh, wow, when I read this. But this is from Kevin, who is a regular contributor by email to the show. He has a Instagram account, kevin.cummings. That's his last name, Kevin Cummings. He is a photographer and just all-around media expert, computer media expert. And when we talk about things, Kevin will invariably email me with some more information, which I really love. But he posted a picture on Instagram of his wife in the hospital. And I'm just going to read what he posted as kind of oh, wow, and take this to heart. So, don't normally share much truly personal stuff here. However, this is too important not to share. Saturday afternoon, my wife came into the house and told me she thought she had a stroke. I thought she was kidding until I listened to her speech. The event lasted only 5 minutes, and she was completely normal within 15 minutes. We called our doctor's office and they said, go to the emergency room. Off we go. 3 days later, none of the tests could find a cause, but they did determine that she had suffered 2 tiny strokes. They did one more test to rule out a heart defect before they would release her. The test showed a large myxoma, M-Y-X-O-M, tumor in her heart. The next morning, she was transferred to a different hospital for heart surgery. This morning, she underwent successful open heart surgery. Hello, wow. I'm waiting patiently to see her. So don't ignore something when something unusual happens. We could have ignored it because she was feeling fine. Having the tumor in her heart, however, was a ticking time bomb. It was large enough that part of it was flopping around in the valve. It would have broken loose in the future and would have caused a debilitating or fatal result. Instead, we have something that can be fixed with common surgery. She's still in danger of bleeding or a stroke while she heals, but we are over the hump and I'm optimistic. Go see your doctor. Yeah. I mean, I'm one of them. I'm like, oh, I don't need to go to the emergency room. I don't need to go see the doctor. I don't need to call. The emergency room, well, it's different. In New York City, you're going to be there 8 hours. In Connecticut, up by the house, last time I walked in there was no waiting. And I was like, yeah, come on in. But holy cow. I mean, it was just a little head thing, a little headache. Oh, I just got a little blurry. Yeah, no, call your doctor, which is who they're probably going to say, go to the emergency room. So, and then Kevin posted a second picture a couple days later of his wife already home after open heart surgery, which is amazing, but testament to the technology and craft and just talent that nurses and doctors have today. I truly believe that nurses run the hospital. The doctors are just kind of tolerated, I think. And if you have to go see someone in the hospital, bring a couple dozen donuts. That's what I do, because the staff in the different wings or different floors, man, they got to put up with a lot of stuff. So donuts go a long way, or some home baked cookies. You know, it's just it's a way of kind of saying, hey, I realize you guys are working hard. A friend of mine went through and still is going through a huge cancer treatment, and he's not the warmest person, you know. So when he was in an intensive care unit, I went almost every day, and I would bring something for the nurses because he was a handful to deal with. So just to kind of let them know, you know, you appreciate what's going on there. So I will link to Kevin's Instagram account, but if you just type in Kevin.Cummings in Instagram, you'll come across. It's mainly pictures of his two dogs who are show dog. Well, they're not really show, they're talent dogs. I don't know. They do that agility stuff. And there's a lot of pictures of his dogs. And he is a great contributor to the show here, kind of behind the scenes. So there you go. The other article thing, I subscribed to the Washington Post, and you can roll your eyes at the Washington Post thinking there's some liberal bastion, which I don't think so. They have a column called Inspired Life, and I get an email. You can sign up for the Inspired Life email because I don't read the whole Washington Post online. I just read this thing. And the title of this one article I got was, "This mom made a few don't give up signs and planted them in her neighborhood. Soon the signs went global." And she did this a couple years ago, but this is a new article. So I'm going to paraphrase it. I kind of chunked out some interesting sections here. So I'm just going to read this while you're doing your thing and think about it. Amy Wolf was talking with a school teacher friend a couple summers ago when she learned that suicides were skyrocketing among young people. 6 teenagers in the teacher's Oregon district had died in a 1-year period. Another 6 had recently attempted suicide in a span of 2 weeks. She wanted to be able to do something to help others who were hurting in silence and felt alone, something that was painfully familiar to her. She lost her brother in a drowning accident in middle school, and that had a big effect on her. So she came up with an idea she called Crazy Yet Simple. She printed up 20 signs with the slogans, "Don't give up, you are worthy of love, and your mistakes don't define you," and then randomly knocked on doors in her Oregon neighborhood to ask people if she could place them in her front yards. That was about 2 years ago. Everyone said yes. And she's quoted here, "I envisioned somebody driving down the road, minding their own business, and literally finding a sign for them not to give up," Wolf said. "Was that crazy? Maybe. As I loaded the signs into the car with my kids, I thought, really? Will anyone really notice? Although the messages might seem overly simplistic, they have an impact, mainly because they are broad enough to apply to almost any situation. That's the beauty of it," she said. "I want the signs to be for everyone, not just one cause. Don't give up can apply to anyone, whether somebody is thinking about suicide or has lost a job." Her signs resonate because people come across them randomly while driving or walking, added Wolf, and the messages speak to them directly. She got an anonymous letter. I really mangle some of those big words, don't I? She got an anonymous letter last year from a man in Salem, Oregon, who had suffered from depression for 7 years and had been contemplating taking his life. On his way home from picking up pizza for his family, he decided to take a different road, and he came across a "Don't Give Up" sign, Wolf said. It so moved him that he pulled over and started weeping. Then he drove home and told his family about how he'd been suffering. "It was exactly the sign of hope he needed," she said, "and exactly at the right time. Now I have a growing list of people who want a sign in their yard. People comment that the signs just cheer them up after a rough day, or when they are dreading going to work in the early morning, the messages help them know they're not alone. They touch hearts and give hope." That is enough reassurance for Wolf that she is on the right track. I found a lot of purpose in this, she said. I feel like once again, I'm that 14-year-old girl who said, I have to make my life matter. I'm fulfilling that now the best way I know how. I take a lot of joy in that. Of all things I've done, this one really matters. And I'm like, wow. She's just a person. And all she did was just put one foot in front of the other and did that thing that she had thought about doing. And I think that is in all of us. You see those inspirational billboards by that nonprofit that I'm blanking on, and like talking about like Nelson Mandela. And yeah, he had a political party with him, but he started from nothing. He had to decide to become political, become someone that spoke out against what was going on in South Africa. He had to crack rocks for years in a prison, but look what he did. So not every one of us is a Nelson Mandela, but you can make a difference in your neighborhood. I specifically like the part about the gentleman who was suffering from depression. That kind of thing, speaking from experience, change sometimes has to come from someone outside your orbit. Your mom or dad or your brother saying you need help. You have a resistance to that sometimes. Like, oh, I'm fine. You don't worry about me. You don't need to tell me what to do. And sometimes it takes someone out of left field going, you have a problem here. Or what are you doing here? Or, hey, I've been through that. I see what's going on in your head. And, here's what you can do. And I've done that a couple times. So I'm like one of those people that believes, like, people are like, oh, they're just mind your own business. They're having a trouble, just let them be. And if I see something that's wrong in someone's life, I will usually point it out. I try and do it as best I can, but you can relate by going, I am, or I've been where you are, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. So, and I think those signs do it, like, don't give up. I've never seen one of these signs, but there's a picture in the article. If you go to Washington Post Inspired Life, or I will link to this here, I'm like, okay, sign me up. I'm wondering if we could have like the Brooklyn version of that, or my town upstate. I live on a really, I wouldn't say desolate road. I don't get a lot of traffic on my road upstate, but maybe some of my neighbors, maybe, who knows? Anyway, I just thought that was pretty cool. Hey, real quick here. I was wondering if you wanted to join the Garden Fork email list. It's Maura Eric. I don't know if you want that or not. But the best way to do that, if you go to the gardenfork.tv site, there are signups all over the place. There should be one on every page. Also, in the show notes for this show, if you're listening to it in the iTunes app or one of the other podcast apps, to click on the little, I think you click on the little text thumbnail of the show and the notes will pop up, and there's a link in there. Or just go to gardenfork.tv and there should be a sign up there. All right? Thank you. In other news, I have a new video out about, I just fixed the front wrought iron fence in Brooklyn. And I've been, for a while now, trying to make videos that my viewers would be interested in, but also are search friendly, kind of how-to stuff. And then I was like, I learned from Tim Schmoyer in my Video Labs web video class that I took with him, that I took, thankfully, to my Patreon patrons, giving me some money to go do that. And you have to create videos that show up in search, but you also have to create videos for your community. And I kind of thought of this one as like a video blog kind of video about me trying to fix something and what I ran into. And what I did was I needed to rearrange the fence in front of our house, and I was going to do some welding. And I met Erin Spain from the aaronspain.com blog at the Troy Built get-together this year, and she had taken a welding class, and my phone's ringing. Sorry, hold on. All right, we'll edit that out. But anyway, she had done some welding, and I was curious about the welder she had bought. And so I was reading some reviews online. And it's kind of an upgrade from, I have this inexpensive Harbor Freight welder, and I've made a couple of videos with that welder, and I've gotten a lot of traction with it, a lot of actually positive comments about how I can improve my welding. And one of the ways to do that is to upgrade your welder. The inexpensive ones are an AC flux core welder, and So one of the ways you can upgrade your welder is to get, instead of an AC welder, get a DC flux core welder, which makes the welding a lot easier. I'm going to kind of reduce it into podcast terms, but AC current goes back and forth. It's like on, off, on, off, on, off. DC is just from one pole to the other. Alternating current's called AC. It alters poles. It goes hot, cold, on, off, on. Anyway, you get the idea here. So it was about $100 more, and I thought, okay, I can sell the Harbor Freight welder to someone that wants it. And it made a big difference. It made the welding much easier. I mean, flux core welding is essentially an electric hot glue gun with molten metal instead of melted plastic glue. And it worked really well. And the project came out well. And it was a happy video, and people made some really good comments there. What I thought was interesting is that I then worked on my neighbor's fence, and we had to kludge together 2 pieces of wrought iron because he has an old, like a turn-of-the-century fence, and it had this very specific designs. I don't know if they're called medallions. They look like spades on the top of the fence. Anyway, we went to the salvage yard. If you live in Brooklyn, it's under the F train at 9th Street. If you've ever been to that salvage yard of, like, I think it's called Old Brooklyn. But all sorts of wrought iron, stuff pulled out of brownstones, basically. And it took all afternoon, and I had to mate up 2 disparate pieces of wrought iron that looked similar but weren't exactly the same. And I didn't feel too positive about this. I'm like, my neighbor is helping, neighbor/friend is watching and helping. And I'm like, I'd really just like to stop. But he had the day, this was the only day he'd taken a day off for some other things, but this is a day off to do this. And I was like, okay, I'm going to push through. And finally, I had it laying on the ground, the weld, and I got it all lined up. I had to do a lot of cutting with the right angle grinder, and man, that thing makes a mess of a noise and a lot of dust. And we put it up, and we leaned it up against where it was going to drop in, and it looked amazingly good. So I was like, oh, I thought that was going to blow, and it didn't. So little theme there. I thought that was good. What I did like about that video is that in the background, I have a rainbow flag in front of my house. And it's not on purpose, it's just in a bunch of the video in the background because I'm holding the camera up talking to it, and then there's a big American flag, and then there's a rainbow flag. And I thought, I wonder if that's going to get any flack on YouTube. And it didn't. Actually, no one has said anything. And that to me is fantastic. I think that's great. And to further that, we actually we watched that David Letterman's Netflix show, My Next Guest. And we watched Ellen DeGeneres on there. And it kind of gave more of a window for me into people that aren't heterosexual and what they have to deal with growing up. And it was just neat. It was, she had a good story, and it kind of put you in her feet. And I was like, okay, so anyway. That was my thoughts on that. And the computer's bonking. Sorry. So there you go. That's just kind of Eric's world for the day. It's like, go out, try new stuff. You might fail. Go make some signs and put them in people's yards. Don't make them offensive, but who knows? Maybe in your neighborhood you have a what's that called? A homeowners association or homeowners agreement, HOA. That might keep you from doing that. I don't know. I imagine there might be some issues there, but I wonder if with free speech you could do that. I'd be curious to hear from people about that. Anyway, our email address is radio@gardenfork.tv. I'd like to hear from you, hear your thoughts. Do you put signs in your yard? Have you seen any of these signs, or have you helped someone change their life? I'd be curious to hear that. radio@gardenfork.tv. All right, go out and do cool stuff. Let me know about it. I'll see you. Garden Fork Radio's executive producer is Jimmy Goots of hollowbooks.com, and our music is licensed from uniquetracks.com.